Welcome to the November 14th, 2023 Newburgh Dundee Public Schools Board Meeting. So I now call it to order and we will stand for the flag salute. The first item is we are going to recess to executive session per ORS 192-600 parentheses 2I to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request a public hearing. So we will recess now and then come back, hopefully by 6 o'clock. Okay, we will call the meeting back to order after executive session. And we have some guests here tonight. The Joy Program is going to do a performance and presentation. And are you going to introduce, please? So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Bruner, and I am the Program Director of Joy. Thank you for allowing us to share the Joy program with you today. The Junior Orchestra of Yamhill County is one of two programs funded by the Yamhill Enrichment Society, or YES. In addition to Joy, YES also partners with Dolly Parton's Imagination Library through our local program, Yamhill County Imagination Library. We mail books to the homes of every child between the ages of birth and 5 years old in Yamhill County. YES realizes how important literacy and the arts are to our youngest residents' education journey. Joy brings access to free orchestral education to youth in Yamhill County, including instruments and teaching artists. Joy teaching artists provide violin instruction during kindergarten and first graders regular weekly in-school music classes. Second through fifth graders meet after school with options for violin, raise your hand if you play violin, viola, and cello. The program is free and inclusive for Yamhill County Public School students. As most of you are aware, Edwards Elementary was our pilot program, and we began in 2017, and we are now celebrating our 7th fall season. Currently, Joy is serving kindergarten through 5th grade at Edwards Elementary School, and with your support, we have expanded the Joy program this year to kindergartners at Antonia Crater Elementary School as well. Most of last year's Joy graduates have continued on in Newburgh's middle school orchestra programs, and we currently employ 5 Newburgh High School orchestra students as assistants for the Joy program as well. Joy also serves students in 4 elementary schools in McMinnville. What began as a local small idea is now bringing violin, viola, and cello instruction to more than 670 students at public schools in our county. The Edwards 2nd through 5th grade after school program has 3 orchestras, and today you'll hear from the Chamber Orchestra. Teaching artists of these orchestras include Sarah Hyen and Sadie LaPierre. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to 2 of our students. Give it up for Rebecca and Brinsley.
Hi, my name is Brinsley Jenkins. I've been playing here for 5 or 6 years. Violin is my instrument, and it's really fun and Joy is a great extracurricular program. The teachers are amazing and they help me a lot. Joy has made me more confident in everything. My name is Rebecca Decker and I play the cello. I've been playing for 4 years. And I love playing an instrument because it helps me, it brings me out of tough times, and I just enjoy playing all the songs we learned. I feel really happy when I play it, and it makes me feel better. And Joy Orchestras provided me with music and taught me how to play the cello. So I wouldn't be where I am right now without my teacher and friends' help.
All right, hello. So I'm Sadie LaPierre. Oh, a little closer to the mic, sorry. I'm Sadie LaPierre, one of the Joy teaching artists. I primarily teach violin, but of course work with the orchestra. I've been working with this chamber orchestra for the beginning part of the school year. And we are currently learning a piece called Breakbeat. So this is a really fun piece that has a lot of pizzicato, which is plucking the strings, and stomping and clapping. As you can see, they have no bows right now. So this piece has no bows at all. So listen as the theme gets passed around through the orchestra and see which sections of the orchestra are playing together and which ones are stomping and clapping. It's a really good time. So Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much. It was a joy for us to be able to play for you guys.
Thank you. Well, thank you to the Joy program. That was a treat. The next thing, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No, if not, then we'll go to the consent agenda. The first thing is new hires and resignations. It, there's only one is a retirement. Is there a motion for, on the consent agenda? And then we have the board minutes to approve on the consent agenda.
So you can do them, you can talk about all of them
Okay.
and then have one motion.
Okay, so we'll talk about them all and have one motion. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, we'll have a motion later. Elementary sign checkers for the each school for their bank accounts is on the consent agenda, and the people are listed, the principal, secretary, vice principals, or teacher. The next thing on the consent agenda is out-of-state travel. The first one is for the girls varsity basketball team to go to a tournament in San Diego, California, December 26th. And the other one is a varsity cheerleading in Anaheim, California on February 14th. And then we had two nice donations. See what happened to those. Okay,
Both from ARE.
okay, they're both from ARE Manufacturing. They're for LED readout and the acute travel scale. So, any questions about the consent agenda?
Now I'll move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as presented.
Any comments? Second,
Second?
all those in favor? Okay, motion carries. So the next item on the agenda is public forum. We had one from letter from a previous board meeting that's going to be read, and then we'll do the people in person.
Okay, this was October 9th. Dear Newburgh School Board, I'm writing in support of Kat McNeil, Chair of the Budget Committee. Kat McNeil is the Chair of the Budget Committee in the Newburgh School District. She has served on the Budget Committee for 10 years and chaired it for 5 years. She is not a recent addition to push back against the former board. She was in fact approved by the former board twice. She expressed concerns about the district's budget during a meeting. Director Renee Powell asked McNeil to step down, alleging a conflict of interest. McNeil is involved in a lawsuit against the district and 4 board members for public meeting law violations. The lawsuit aims to make the individuals compensate the district for illegally spent funds. McNeil's actions are in the district's interest and not a conflict of interest. McNeil abstained from voting on the budget due to concerns about transparency, attorney fees, and the absence of a strategic plan. She suggested a forensic audit to ensure proper spending and financial transparency. McNeil has been diligent in holding government officials accountable for tax dollars and is passionate about public education. She raised concerns about the lack of a strategic plan, something any publicly funded institution should have. She also raised concerns about discrepancies in budget figures, state funding issues, and the use of taxpayer money for board member attorney fees. State funding to the district was suspended from January to May. There is little explanation of how the district pays its bills during that time. Kat McNeil should not be pressured to resign. She is acting with integrity in the best interest of the students and families this district serves. McNeil's questions about the district's budget deserve clear, documented explanations. Sincerely, Irene Dunlop.
We have people who have signed up to speak in person. The first person is Maria. Yeah, she's gonna use that one.
I'm gonna read part of the book. This book I got at the library. It was like this open and it caught my eye. The color, very simple cover. When I took it home, I read a part of it and I realized this is not a book that I want to read to my child and that I do not want my child to read. So I'll read part of it. Have you seen your brother? Mom asked as she rustled through the fridge for dinner options. He went to Randy's house. Hot dogs and beans it is. Scott hated baked beans, but both George and her mother loved them. While Mom made dinner, George headed upstairs to take a bath. She took off her shirt, with a tub filled, waiting until the last possible moment to take off her pants and underwear. She immersed her body in the warm water and tried not to think about what was between her legs. But there it was, bobbing in front of her. I'm trembling. This is, bobbing in front of her. She washed her hair with lots of shampoo so that the suds could cover the surface of the water. She scrubbed her body, stood with a splash, and dried off the fuzzy blue towel. Then she wrapped the towel around her torso up by her armpits the way girls do. And ran a small black comb through her hair. She brushed it forward and stared at her pale, freckled face in the mirror before combing it back into its regular part down the middle. In her room, George changed into a pair of flannel pajamas covered in tiny penguins wearing red bow ties. Mom called her to dinner. Was ready. George went downstairs to eat. Mom already sat at the kitchen table getting ready to take a bite of her hot dog, which was covered with mustard and relish. I'm not going to read anymore. I mean, that says volumes right there. I don't know why in the schools we can't write Jesus saves on a whiteboard, but we can have rainbows and LGBT. We are confusing our youth. We are confusing them. Right now, they need to be allowed to be children. At that age, who knows who they are? They don't know. Do they know? They don't know. The more there's a lot that I need to learn still, but just knowing this little bit that I know that the schools need to prepare our children to be able to go out and get a job, to be community, within the community. We are not teaching our children anything. We're just confusing them. What are these kids going to end up? Mental health issues? They don't know who they are. At that age, they don't know.
The next person to speak is Samuel Ross. And just a reminder, our policy is no responses when people speak, just out of politeness to everybody. So thank you.
My name is Samuel Wallace. I am a student at Newburgh High School. On November 2nd, 2 weeks ago, I received a referral for writing Jesus Saves on the whiteboard in the West Commons lunchroom. Mind you, this is one of 3 referrals I was given at one time. Jesus Saves is a positive comment with no derogatory context. This whiteboard is in the lunchroom where numerous randomly written statements and comments from students would be left alone for multiple days. This is not defacing school property or graffiti like what happens in the bathrooms with permanent markers. It is a whiteboard being written on erasable markers. It is not being vandalized in any way. There is no instruction on or around the whiteboard indicating it is off limits to students. How am I, as a student, supposed to know it's off limits? I had been writing on the whiteboard for over 2 weeks without incident, as were other students. I was never told I had to stop, and I was never given a warning. I was sent to the office for a referral, which at the time I did not know the reason for being taken to the office. I was told I was showing defiance of authority and displaying disrespectful behavior. This is wholly untrue. I am a straight A student and have not missed one single day of school. I am respectful and follow instructions when I am made aware of them. I feel like these referrals were retaliation towards me. I'll name some of the reasons I feel this way. The same day that I was given 3 referrals, my mother was in a meeting making a complaint about an anti-military curriculum I've had to endure in my English class. She told the principal she'd be making a complaint about the curriculum being used. 4 weeks ago, I asked about starting a TPUSA student organization. I asked a few teachers and one was happy to help me, but then later told me that they feared for their job and the risk it would bring them to be an advisor for my club. Teachers are fearful of their jobs if they sign up to help me and my club members with a club that appears to be very patriotic. The club I am starting is a respectful and important club that will provide a safe space for students to talk about and learn about the Constitution, amendments, laws, our rights as citizens, and how the government works. These incidents make me feel like I'm being targeted for my beliefs. No one ever got in trouble for writing on that whiteboard until someone noticed that Jesus saves, and now suddenly the board is wiped clean every day. I was not asked how students would feel if it was something about worshiping Satan. You cannot restrict the speech of students unless it promotes violence. Writing Jesus Saves is not disrespectful and it is not in defiance of the district's authority. I hope as a school board, you will advocate for the community and students of Newburgh. Policy needs to be addressed and schools need to be reminded that freedom of expression is not limited by a whiteboard. I was using my First Amendment right to freedom of expression and freedom to express my religious beliefs. The school district and school board want our school district to be inclusive, but how can it be inclusive if teachers and students are afraid of expressing themselves? There are certain themes that appear to be of more importance than others. To be truly inclusive, you need to be truly equal in all representations of expression, and this includes my right to say, Jesus saves. Thank you.
Okay, the next person to speak is Rebecca Wallace.
Good evening. I realized that my son's referrals were thrown out by senior administration. Admin said the end result is what really matters, and in his student record, sure it is. However, what about his reputation or the damage done to his trust in authority figures at the high school? Every time he's asked to come to the office without an explanation, he's going to wonder if he's in trouble. A kid that has not missed a day of school, gets extremely high marks in all his classes, and is very respectful to his teachers and fellow students. Navigating high school after being homeschooled for over 5 years. I'm not saying this to gain sympathy for him, but to lay the groundwork for what I have to say next. I want the board to consider that the atmosphere of the district is what the atmosphere of the district is after the last 8 years. We have a new superintendent that's been working hard to change the culture to one of inclusivity, but the residual effects of the administration before him are still holding strong. In the district's efforts to be inclusive, they have accomplished exclusion instead, excluding marginalized groups from feeling safe. The irony of that shouldn't be lost on anyone. Imagine walking the halls and seeing stickers on doors that imply some teachers are safe and some teachers are not, using an assumption that if the teacher is not declaring they are safe, then they are instead unsafe. Students should not have to pick between door number 1 and door number 2, basing their choice off a sticker. How does a sticker hold more power than a human being? Students should feel safe with every teacher. If there's a teacher out there not worthy of accepting all children, then this is a hiring and retention problem. These signs showed up long before Dr. Phillips, and most are provided by the Newburgh Education Association. I would like to see them removed, as it's creating an implicit hostile environment for students and teachers alike. A fear manufactured to lord over the children and teachers in our school district by adults with political agendas. Comply with the label or else you get accused of being a bigot or someone who must be unsafe around the students. These political agendas do seem to have a limit, though. Apparently, a limit some staff are willing to put on the students that wish to express their love and faith of God. I get the district has limits as a government entity to separate church and state, but make no mistake, that lies solely in teaching of the students, not in the personal beliefs or the freedom of expression that students and teachers retain as citizens of the United States. Making students and some staff feel as if they are not allowed to express their personal beliefs is a culture that needs remedied. Some training on constitutional rights is in order. The previous turmoil around status symbols has probably confused teachers and staff as to what is allowed and what is not, and how to handle situations when they believe something is displayed or said incorrectly. Just as students have policies to not be bullied, staff need to hold each other accountable for that as well. Staff shouldn't fear losing their job, being harassed by other staff in disagreement, or have a fear of making students feel unsafe simply because they have a no safe sticker on their classroom door or window. Nor should they feel at risk if they choose to support each other or the students that express their religious beliefs, values, and ideas. Circling back, to be inclusive, you must remind everyone that exclusion is not the answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Under agenda item number 8, reports, presentations, discussion of items, the school resource officers are going to speak with us and inform us about their roles in our district. Thank you.
Our chairs, my best friend. Hello, folks. I'm Officer Borland with the Newburgh Police Department.
Good evening. I'm Jay Stearns, also with the Newburgh Dundee Police Department.
This officer I've been a school resource officer since 2011 here. And finally, this year, we have a fantastic addition to our team. That's Officer Jay Stearns.
How we doing? Happy to be here. My name is Jay Stearns. This is my first year as the newest school resource officer. I'm excited. This has been a really neat year. I've had an opportunity to get to know the students over this first trimester. It's been wonderful. I'd say the first 3 weeks of September, the students would ask me, "Why are you here? Am I in trouble?" But by October, it's Officer Jay, I'm so glad you're here. Can you arm wrestle me at lunch today? You know, can you sit down and play basketball with me? It's just been a really neat experience, and the kids are getting used to me. And so I'm happy to be here. And I know you have probably some questions for us, and I do want to explain a project that's in the works. So yeah.
We split the schools having two, where my primary focus is the high school and Catalyst and basically the block where Mount View is. And Officer Stearns takes all the grade schools and Shalom Valley. And it works out pretty well. Frees up a lot of time for both of us to reach out to more kids.
Do board members have questions for the SROs?
The only question I had, he already answered, like how they split up, but I'll ask another question. What I know Officer Stearns, talked about how he's enjoyed getting to know the kids. Can I ask I lost it. No, sorry. I'll come back.
I have a question for Officer Stearns. What made you want to be a school resource officer? I've had an opportunity to work with Officer Moreland for many years, so kind of interested in why you wanted to shift into this role.
That's a great question. Thanks. That was one of my interview questions, so I can answer that pretty easily. So I think if you had asked me this question at the majority of my career, I've been in law enforcement for almost 16 years now. Did several years of patrol and then 6 years as a detective. And for most of that time, if you had asked me, why would you want to be a school resource officer, I would have said no way. There was no interest at all. But I came to a point in my career, in my personal life, where I kind of took stock of who I am, what skills I have, and after talking with Officer Moreland, I thought this was something that I could be really useful. I thought I know that I have a lot to offer the students. I have children. My oldest son is in college, so I've kind of experienced all of those stages of development, and I just enjoy being around kids. And most officers get into this job because we do want to help people, and this is an opportunity for me to really make a difference. It's being proactive. And I especially like being around the younger kids. They're very pliable at this age. Especially the elementary students. They still think that we're cool. Once they get to middle school, you kind of lose them a little bit. And high school, that's his area. But it's been really neat to just experience this role. And again, I'm excited to introduce the DARE program, which I'll talk about later. And I think you'll be excited to hear what I have to share.
Would you say that like the general ideal daily role is just interacting with kids and making them comfortable with law enforcement, making them feel safe in the schools? Like, is that outside of obviously making sure that things are safe, but your daily act?
Yeah, the relationship piece that you get with the kids is you can't even measure it. And you never know when it's going to pay off. And I've had, in all my years of being an SRO, there's been countless times, and I'll give a really brief example. That there was this girl I used to have to interact with on a regular basis, arrest her, take her to juvie, cite her for crimes. She was a broken kid. She was hurting. Well, a detective from another agency came and interviewed her, word that she was a victim of a sex crime. And they interviewed her in my office, and I sat there in the office, not saying a word, just letting him do his job. And I could tell instantly she's lying. She wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't engage with me. When every time she saw me, it was always hugs and high fives. And he talked to her for hours. She denied everything, denied. And he finally opened the door for me to ask, Anthony, you want to add? And all I did is say her name and say, hey, look at me. And that's all it took. She confessed, and she also identified 3 other victims. And this guy was arrested and held accountable for it. Those are the payoffs for having police officers in the schools. You never know. And I can give you story after story after story of things just like that. And I think he's gonna be a fantastic asset because like I've been telling everybody since he came on, if I was to have to say anything bad about him, I'd have to lie. I can't think of a single negative thing. Well, maybe his looks, but no, he's pretty fantastic. So no, that's the value of being an SRO and being in the schools.
Okay, thank you very much. Further questions?
I did ask Officer Stearns to prepare a quick briefing of the new DARE program, because that's what you're going to be presenting to our 5th graders this year. And so if you can go through that real quick.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I did prepare a short presentation. I'll be brief. When I applied to be the new SRO, my pitch was bringing back the DARE program. I confess it wasn't an original idea. It came from my chief. He put the bug in my ear, but he allowed me to kind of run with it and research it. And so I was able to go to a training, pretty intensive training course in Kennewick, Washington, and became a certified DARE instructor. I'll give you a little history of DARE real quick. DARE started in 1983, so it's been around for a long time. It started in Los Angeles. Chief Daryl Gates with the Los Angeles Police Department, along with the Unified School District there, they came up with this DARE program. And it was actually a pretty good fit. You had schools working with police, trying to prevent students from using and abusing drugs. It took off like a rocket ship. It became very, very popular. DARE became this household name. Most everyone's heard of DARE. Agencies from all over the country would send their officers to Los Angeles because they wanted to learn about this new program. They wanted to implement it in their communities. And so it became what we know DARE to be. However, there were some critics early on. The method of DARE in and of itself was it was good intentioned, but it involved a police officer standing in front of a group of students in a lecture type format, basically telling students, don't do drugs. And again, that in and of itself isn't bad. You had an officer in the schools, he was interacting with students, that's a good thing. He or she was giving them information about drugs so they can make an educated decision. That's a good thing. The thing that was critiqued was this lecture format. Is that the best way for students to retain information? And the science and the research says no. Students learn better when they're engaged in some sort of active learning. So DARE went back to the drawing board, and they began working with different institutes of education, Penn State University, University of North Carolina, Greenboro, Iowa State University, and DARE's curriculum team created a new curriculum. In 2008, they introduced DARE's Keeping It Real middle school program, middle school curriculum. In 2013, they introduced the Keeping It Real elementary curriculum. And then in 2016, United States Surgeon General certified DARE as being an effective curriculum. So the DARE that you think of, that I think of, the DARE that I graduated from in 1992, that DARE is no more. The new DARE, it is effective, it's research driven, it is it's based on science, and it's based on the social emotional learning theory, which, as you know, is identifies fundamental basic skills that are needed for healthy development. And so I plan on introducing the elementary curriculum, so the 5th grade curriculum, to all of the Newburgh Dundee's 5th grade students. There's 312 this year. I'll be teaching 8 classes in the winter term, so starting December, that first week of December, and then I'll teach 6 classes in the spring term. They're 10 45-minute lessons. They're going to cover topics including responsibility, decision-making, stress, peer pressure, communication, good communication, confident communication, nonverbal communication, of course, drugs and alcohol, and then bullying. The students are going to learn what's called the DARE decision-making model. This is really important. They are going to learn to define a problem, a challenge, or an opportunity. They will then learn to assess their choices to include the risks and consequences. They will learn to respond to the situation, and then finally they will evaluate their decision. Did I make a good choice? There's lots of ways to make decisions, but so we're just giving them another decision-making model, which I think is effective. I use it daily now. It's really simple and it really works. DARE is not just for elementary, it's actually a K through 12 program. And I'll go quick here. Because I can teach it, there's a K through 2 curriculum where I can go into the kindergarten, first or second grade classrooms. I can just pop in real quick with these little posters. Takes about 10 minutes. Kindergartners, they don't have great attention span. Certainly it's not going to be a 30-minute lecture like I'm doing here. It'll be just a real short. We can talk about how to call 911. What's an emergency? We can talk about stranger danger. Here's one about household items, that are they're going to find under the sink or in mom and dad's medicine cabinet, things we don't want them to put in their bodies. It's a real easy way for me to introduce myself as their DARE officer and get into the classroom. There's a 3rd and 4th grade curriculum, which I can teach standalone lessons on rules and laws, drugs, becoming a good citizen. Of course, there's the 5th grade curriculum, which I believe is kind of the bread and butter of DARE. There's a middle school curriculum, and there's even a high school curriculum. So obviously I can only be at one place at a time. So I have, after talking it over with Chief, I think we get the most bang for our buck. I don't have any other way to say that with the 5th grade students. That transition before they go to middle school is key. They're going to experience quite a bit of peer pressure as they get into that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so by introducing this decision-making model, I hope that they can make good decisions. We're giving them the tools to make good decisions to resist peer pressure. So I'll stop there. I know you probably have questions, but I'm prepared to talk about funding and what opting out. I can talk about a lot. I can talk all day. I'll stop talking now.
I have a question. So at the 5th grade level, it sounds like you think that that's a real great spot to implement for the impact. And has there been any expressed concerns from families that being taught that drugs exist, that will make them want to take drugs?
Research in general or from the Newburgh Dundee parents?
Maybe both. I'm just curious because I know it started to have some conversation in the community that this is happening, or maybe it's just because I've talked with you about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the concern could be that if you're talking to my kids, it might make them want to do drugs. And so I'm just wondering if you've heard any of that from the community, and like, how would you address that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And no, I haven't heard that, but I do know that research shows that introducing certain topics too early can be harmful. And so the DARE curriculum is careful not to introduce some of those sensitive topics, drugs and alcohol and tobacco. We're going to talk about that at the 5th grade level, but the introduction to opioids, the opioid epidemic, that doesn't get introduced until the middle school curriculum. So I'm not really touching that yet. And there are going to be some topics that perhaps are sensitive, and I would personally handle that by, I'm not going to instruct the children necessarily in everything. I would ask them to involve their parents, involve their guardians. And so I would direct them to that. I'm really a facilitator of this information, and I'm sensitive to, of course, the dynamics of the home. So I would probably direct them back to their parents if that came up. And then of course, I'm happy to talk to any concerned parent. There is the option to opt out. As passionate as I am about DARE, I know there might be some parents who are not as passionate about having a police officer in the classroom. So there is a letter that'll be going out the week after Thanksgiving, giving parents the option to opt out if they choose.
Well, I would just say that from my experience, I think Officer Stearns is, just the right person to be doing this program. And I'm really excited that you're taking it on. So thank you.
I would, yeah, also say, I think that it's great that, I think that this reinvention of DARE, it sounds like really great stuff. My biggest fear in general is always, we have a history of maybe using fear tactics in these kind of situations. And I like the idea that it sounds like it's more evidence-based and based on how things actually work. And I think that that's just really important for kids to not take things to an extreme that they're not necessarily.
Yeah, you know, it aligns with the National Common Core standards, and we're not using fear in any way.
How long was the program, like even for the fifth grade for this year? Is this once in every class, or are you going multiple times over so many weeks?
Great question. I thought I should have said that. So for the fifth grade curriculum, it is 10 45-minute lessons. So I'll be in the class once a week for 10 weeks. And then for the other, like the K through 2, the third and fourth, those are just little drop-in lessons as I have time. But yeah, so it'll be 10 lessons, and then they'll have a culmination ceremony, a graduation ceremony at the end. And that can be as elaborate and fun as my imagination and budget allows. So I should note, this has been fully funded. I applied for a grant, and I'm pleased to say that we received the grant. So this will not cost the school district any money, will not cost the students any money. The first year is completely covered. And I hope to continue that, maybe even do some fundraising in the future. But it's going to be a great program for the students, and they're really going to benefit from it, in my opinion. So.
Any further questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to now move to item SIA, quarter 4 and annual progress report. SIA is student investment account. She just told me to switch them.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. This is our annual report for the student investment account. As a reminder, this school year 23-24, the student investment account was merged with the high school success grant and several of our other grants to create the integrated plan. So this will be the last year of the student investment account report, because then it switches to all of the grants combined together. Moving forward, those reports will come to you twice a year, quarter 2 and quarter 4. So one time kind of early February-ish, and then again at this point next year. So you'll have 2 updates from us instead of just this one, and the updates will cover all of the grants, not just SIA. So tonight we're just going to talk specifically about SIA. The main purpose for our SIA funds that the district chose to invest in, and again, this reporting window is from the last 3 years. So all of the goals that we're going to discuss tonight have been a 3-year long plan that ended September 30th. And so that's when our new grant cycle started. There's a little bit of overlap. The new grant cycle started July 1. So just a tiny bit of overlap, but our goals were really around mental health needs for our students and academic achievement for our students. So you will find that as we discuss this, all of our budgeting is really around these factors. So we had $3,563,239.39 in funds for the 22-23 school year. And we had to designate buckets that they were going to go to. And so we chose as a district, which was at the beginning of the 3-year cycle as well, improving student health and safety and well-rounded education. So everything that we fund is attributing to these 2 buckets. Our goals for those funds were increased access to mental and behavioral health supports, along with drug and alcohol counselors, improved academic instruction and interventions, and other classroom supports targeting math, English language arts, and science. So these next couple slides, I'm not going to go through all of it, but these are a list of our entire budget. So that $3 million covers all of the slides that are coming up next. So our big areas were the mental health supports that we provided, along with our special education and behavioral health coordinator, our drug and alcohol counselors. We had quite a big investment in adding counselors at building levels,
are all of our teaching and learning TOSAs, so our math TOSA, our ELD TOSA, English language development, and dual language, along with our literacy TOSA, are funded out of the SIA grant. In addition to that, half of our ELD specialists are funded out of the grant, as well as some support to Catalyst High School. We have speech language pathologists funded out of this grant, and our bilingual help desk, which was a critical point during COVID, especially when families were navigating learning from home. Our reading specialists that are in the district are funded out of this grant. We have some educational assistants funded out of this grant, the teaching and learning coordinators. Our SRO officers have some funding from this grant. And then the expenditures we transitioned, with the exception of the campus monitor there at the bottom, to professional development. So we had PACS training for our social emotional learning and behavior supports. This is suicide prevention training, MANT training, and then we did some work in math interventions and language acquisition training. So you can see all of the expenditures are directly related to mostly staffing, with this few at the end related to professional development. And this plan continues over into the new cycle that we have as well. So our expenditures, what did they do? Increase support for students' mental health and behavioral health needs. I think one of the biggest factors that we really focused on this year was not only continuing the support, but then adding additional supports, so that improves student growth and achievement in our core. We have reading specialists in every building, kindergarten through 8th grade. And there was some staffing adds there, along with English language development teachers. We were able to increase the amount of support going to students with needing additional intervention. And then this also caused our 9th grade on track rate increased 5%. And our EL students that are active English learners, so EL is active English learner, our active English learners had 100% graduation rate. So our supports are working. I wanted to throw a slide in here on our elementary data, but I didn't, because I didn't want to make it a giant long presentation. I know there's a lot tonight, but the impact our reading specialists are making at the building level, I can't tell you enough the investment that we have in the teachers through this grant, be it reading specialists or school counselors or our English language development teachers. We are seeing the impact. We have a cohort of students that started kindergarten during COVID, and you can see all of the data that we've collected through our benchmark assessments. So those are the assessments we give 3 times a year. And the amount of increase due to the interventions we've put in place because of the benefit of the SIA grant is dramatic. And actually it's so much so that the Oregon Response to Intervention, as well as ODE, has noticed and is asking us, how are we doing this? And so I just want to highlight that this is one of the major supports when we talk about interventions in our district. Like, this is the grant that funds that, and we really are seeing the outcomes there. So I'm really excited for that and for what comes next for our students as they progress through the system. So really great, strong elementary work is happening, and we roll that up to middle school. Both middle schools have reading interventions this year, and we are working to really support that systematic instruction in intervention and in data usage so that students aren't trying to find intervention, but we're finding them before they need it. So our annual report also has some required questions. One area is what changes in behavior, actions, policies, or practices has the SIA grant itself caused in our district over the course of the prior 3 years? So one of the biggest things, obviously, is those expanded positions. Before this grant, our Title I schools had reading specialists, no one else. Before this grant, we had half-time ELD teachers at almost every school, with the exception of Edwards, and I think Mabel Rush and Joanne Austin. So before this grant, counselors, maybe each school had one. So the amount of staffing and direct student support, like, I can't tell you enough how important this is to our students. So big changes in terms of the amount of support and intervention that our students are receiving. I'm really excited to share that. You couldn't tell. And then some barriers or challenges. So during our early years and last year, I would say filling positions was difficult, but as we progressed through last year and this year, we have every single position full. And so I would say one of the barriers we have now is making sure that we retain staff. So we are doing that through our professional development, and we're also launching a mentorship program this month for our new staff. So I think while we know that there are some barriers there for professional development and mentorship, being able to anticipate the changes in terms of retaining staff, I feel really confident that those are going to be in place for this year. And then one of the other requirements is ongoing community engagement. So a lot of engagement did occur in our integrated plan process. One of the areas that we're really going to target next is last year we did the Youth Truth Survey. So this is the climate and culture survey that students, staff, and our community completed. And a lot of times in the past with our climate and culture survey, there's some data analysis and we report some results. But one thing that we're going to do this year is really engage some focal populations into addressing what barriers we saw, and then what we can do in terms of supporting access and changes in those outcomes, and then being able to put those actions in place. So collaborating with folks within the district and within the community about what the climate and culture survey from Youth Truth showed, and then as a district, what steps we're going to take to make some changes there. And we're really excited to continue doing that. Edwards Elementary did a survey during conference time that was around community engagement. That was one of the first areas that we started. And we're just looking forward to continuing that engagement. And you'll be hearing more and seeing more about that in the coming months. And then in terms of the future, those future implications, so what about all of this? Is the SIA, as I mentioned, changes to the integrated plan. And we will continue supporting that direct student support. So all of the expenditures that I discussed in the budget, those are all intact and continuing. One of the biggest differences or outcomes, future implication, like I mentioned, is our graduation rate for our students acquiring English. That has increased. Newberry's never been at 100% graduation rate for English learners. So that's one thing that I'm really proud of, and it was kind of most of the work that I've done in the last decade or so here. So, and I guess I shouldn't say me, my team and the teachers that are directly working with students. And in terms of other implications, continuing response to intervention to the middle school level and really vertically aligning our data. So as we go through our curriculum adoptions, which we'll be talking about math next, being able to implement the systems that we have and the learning that we've done in the last 3 years to ensure that we're making really great choices about curriculum and instructional strategies and where our investments are going. I'm really excited to see where we're going to be in a couple of years from now. So you'll have another update at Q2, which comes up this spring. And what's next again in that update, we'll talk about the high school success in addition to the student investment account. There'll be some updates on continuous improvement. We are in a consortium for our CTE, so that means we get our CTE funding from the WESD. So that will be part of the report, but not as big because it's not a direct fund. Everyday Matters, which is attendance. We will be launching a lot of attendance coming up here. Every school will have an attendance team. Primarily right now at the secondary levels, focusing on attendance teams. At the elementary level, there are some, but again, thinking about how to systematize what we do to support all students and then engaging in that attendance and Everyday Matters across the region will be part of our next grant cycle. And then the early indicators. So going back to that intervention system and how we're using data. Are there any questions?
I think you answered at the end. So this is the last of a 3-year fund, and we have it all rolled in to go forward, no problems.
Yes, so moving forward, SIA changes to the integrated plan. I want to say I might get this wrong, 4-year plan, but we budget for 2 years. So every 2 years, we're budgeting for the next 2 years. So our overall plan was presented and approved by the board last spring. And we are going to be getting the grant agreements here. We just got the notification from ODE today that they should be coming out soon. And like I said, the second quarter will require another report to you and just kind of give you a sense of that. The first quarter is the budget, and that's due this November 30th, which is kind of what I just presented. So that'll be coming up soon. I think the biggest shift you'll see is there's just more communication and dialogue about what we're doing. So it's really focusing on the student experience.
The integrated plan, the gist of that is, for years, we had 5 or 6 different pots of money, and we had to do 5 or 6 different applications and reportings. They put it all in one pot. And so integrated plan, that's the difference.
To clarify, and this might be more a question for you, Dr. Phillips, is it sounds like it's still all grant money though, right? So are we still, I mean, do we still have to keep applying for it every couple of years at this point going forward? Or Jillian, if you know.
Go ahead.
It is all grant money. It's not a competitive grant. So it's something that it's based off legislation that the governor has approved and required for all schools. So it's not competitive grant funding. We will receive the money, but yes, there is an application process. And so, like, for example, this is part of the annual report. We are required to present to the board what we've done with the funds and then post it on our website. So kind of as we roll into the integrated planning cycle, there will be required community engagement. So we'll be required, again, 2 times a year. I'll be reporting to you about what we're doing in terms of the process of the integrated plan and the impact that it's having on student achievement. So not competitive, but definitely requirements. The only way we wouldn't get it is if we weren't doing the requirements, which we are.
Yeah, it's in statute, so legislation would have to change. And then, or we would have to really mess up.
Hey, Jillian, I just, one thing that I really appreciate about, I mean, you always give great presentations, but the thing I appreciate most is that you really do hit on the subject of outcomes and measured outcomes. So I guess my only critique would be, I wish you'd be a little more excited about what you're talking about. Thank you for all you guys are doing.
I was also going to comment on her enthusiasm level. Really appreciate it. We were, Nancy and Steve and Scott, we were at the School Board Association conference this weekend, and for some reason the Youth Truth Survey kept coming up. When was that last done, and can we get results from that, or is it on the website, or?
Yes. So last year was the first year that we engaged with the Youth Truth Survey. It was completed in February, and I believe we are posting the results on the website. I can get you copies of the reports.
Okay, thanks. And it really, your enthusiasm is great. I appreciate
And
it.
I would say one of the things about Youth Truth Survey is the fact that it gives us data about how our district compares regionally and nationally, whereas before our surveys were internal. So being able to have that comparison of what's going on everywhere else and how are we doing compared to other areas, I think is a critical point.
Thank you very much, Jillian. And the next item is math adoption, Holly.
And I have Brittany here this evening because Holly's children had an orchestra performance. So
Okay.
Brittany
Oh, Brittany's here.
is
Yes.
here this evening to share math adoption with you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is the first time I'm presenting to this board. Just wanted to say hello, and to the student reps, hello, and hello everyone in there. Before I start going here, I actually want to acknowledge the hard work several groups of people have put into this. First, I really want to acknowledge Holly Mealy. She is my other colleague, and she's a teaching and learning coordinator. I want to acknowledge Dawn Reed, who is our math TOSA, and the work of our elementary, middle, and high school math leadership teams. Our math leadership teams are filled with all of our teachers from our buildings. And they give you kind of a quick rundown how that is after school. They come here to the district office. We make sure we have snacks so their brain power is at maximum. And they take the time to go through all of our potential math adoptions. And they sat and it's a pretty laborious activity that they do. So we really want to thank all of our teachers for putting in the time and giving us their input. That's the input we value the most because they are in our classrooms doing the work. So we want to make sure that we take a moment to acknowledge that. So I'm excited to announce we are down to 2 curriculums for elementary, middle, and high school. If you take a look at the screen, that first name is the publisher. So for elementary, we have McGraw-Hill's Reveal Math, Curriculum Associates iReady Classroom Mathematics Oregon Edition. For middle school, they are down to EdGems, Oregon EdGems. Big Ideas Learning, Oregon Math Grades 6th through 8th. High school is reviewing Big Ideas Learning, called Oregon Math. and Savas Learning Company, which is called Envision. And to give you guys a review and timeline of this, our pilot window starts from December through January, with Jillian, Holly, and myself coming back to you all in February to put forth a recommendation for math adoption. For the public, all 6 options are available for public review right now through the end of January by appointment. Please email curriculumadoption@newburgh.k12.org.us to set up an appointment.
Also, as we get into our pilots and we have them all set up, there will be online review options as well, where the community can view all of the material online, and so they don't necessarily have to come in person, but we don't have that website set up yet. So hopefully in December, we will share that website information. And then as we get closer to the end, we will probably also have an opportunity for the community drop-in, so you don't have to make an appointment. We'll have a couple days where we have everything open. But you can see the number of boxes in this room over here is shrunk. So that's the curriculum moving around, and what's remaining is what we're moving forward with. So hopefully we'll get this room cleaned up here in the next month or so, and have a adoption ready for your approval in January, February.
Do people have questions?
Yeah, can you go back to the names of the? So I guess my only concern on here is that the Big Ideas Learning has Oregon Math. Are we doing math different in Oregon as opposed to other states, or what is that about?
So publishers do tend to make different versions depending on the region that you live in. So for example, Texas and California have different versions many times that publishers create. So we're just indicating that we are making sure the edition we choose is aligned to the Oregon Common Core standards.
Okay, thank you.
Not the Texas standards, which may or may not be similar since everyone's sort of doing Common Core standards, but specific to ensure that they meet all of the requirements of our Oregon standards.
I was just wondering, as a curriculum directors, are you concerned, like there's, except for the middle school, ed gyms and high school, the scaffolding, because sometimes curriculums, if it's by the same publisher, they scaffold all the way K through 12, and with different publishers publishing, you think that makes a difference, or will that come up as they're reviewed?
So that was one of the areas. We had a tool that our teachers used in their review process that was very rigorous, and they examined how some of that scaffolding worked. We only picked materials that met in every category. So for example, there are some elementary maths that only met kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then their 3rd through 5th grade option didn't meet. And so we wanted to make sure at the elementary level that kindergarten through 5th grade had the same publisher curriculum so that it is aligned and vertical. So as we that was part of the process. We backwards mapped that of what is required in high school, what is required in middle school, and then what would be required in elementary to ensure their success. And all of the curriculums that have been chosen do align very well. So that was definitely a factor, a big one that was taken into consideration. And so some were left off because they did not align and support the others.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for your good presentations. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item technology is our next. Scott Marlin. I don't think so.
Before I begin, I was reminded recently that today is actually my 1-year mark in the district. So I'm honored to be able to present to the board and have some tech discussions. It's exciting for me. So I'll try to be as brief as possible, but I love technology and I love talking about technology. Feel free to just be like, move on. next thing. So here's kind of some of the stuff I'd like to cover and discuss a little bit today. As a department and as a district, our vision and mission, values and principles. I don't want to dive deep on the budget, just a quick highlight on what some of our bigger expenses are and what we're meeting needs with that budget. Purpose and stakeholders, our staff, students, the current state of technology, what kind of devices and technologies we support, how technology in our department supports the integrated plan, the strategic plan, all of that. And then upcoming specific goals and objectives that I think align well with supporting teaching and learning. So I took a couple of little blurbs from the district's vision and mission that students will graduate with knowledge and skills to be successful, and how the technology department can support that specific vision in assisting to make sure that our students have access to technologies to become positive digital citizens, not just citizens in general, but also technology so integrated with everything in life now that we want to make sure students have access to start developing those digital citizenship skills and tech skills to be successful in the future. And that ties directly to the mission to educate students to achieve their full potential. And that'll include access to technology to be productive, whether they go into STEM field or pretty much anything anymore requires technology. So we want students to develop the skills to pick up new technology and become familiar with it quickly and easily. So our guiding values and principles is kind of what is our role in the district. And it starts with advising. So we provide the expertise to the district, to admins, to teachers, the different departments on, what technology is available, how can we support it, and how will this help students with learning curriculum or advanced skills. And then our job is to support the technology that we deploy into the schools. As long as we're meeting those objectives, then our next goal is making sure that we're in compliance with federal, state, local regulations, that we're building relationships with our local law enforcement agencies. We want to ensure that we're also supporting a safe, secure learning environment, which is both physical. So we have things like access controls on doors. We have limited access into the facilities, as well as digital controls so that we're ensuring that students are accessing age-appropriate content. With all of this comes fiscal responsibility requirements that we need to work within a budget. We need to make sure that we're not wasting money and throwing money at something that's not going to be productive and helpful to our students or our staff. And then the biggest part probably of all of this is collaborating with our teachers, with our admins, to make sure that we are supporting their needs, not just throwing stuff in because it's cool technology, but that it actually does help them and that we can support if they run into problems or they just need a little extra training or whatever the case may be there. So just a quick budget overview. The tech department budget has fluctuated as staffing has changed over the last few years. The current year, we are just a hair shy of $1 million total. That includes 5 FTE, that includes internet and telephone services and computer hardware, software, tools of that nature in the classrooms. So some of the stuff that we have spent funds outside of our budget, but within the bond budget, is a lot of network. There were a lot of network equipment that was kind of outdated and needed to be updated. A large portion of that got done under the bond and with some E-rate funding. That was a pretty big lift that we did this summer. And as part of the bond, we started installing and configuring new paging systems for the schools. We had some projectors for some classrooms, and we did a couple of servers where at one point we had about 15 physical servers. We condensed that down to save on cost, save on licensing cost. So that's been pretty positive across the board with every building, except obviously Dundee, not yet done with construction. So that's going to be an upcoming thing for us to do the same thing there that we've been doing at the other schools. Some of the non-bond projects that we've tackled, like I mentioned with the servers, just by cutting down the number of physical servers and kind of consolidating things, we eliminate the chance of a power outage in one school affecting multiple things in that school. We can consolidate things where we have power redundancy. So we have generators at the high school under the bond, that helps ensure that our equipment stays online in case there's a power blip at Ewing Young, stuff like that. With printers, we had some security issues early on, so we've been kind of tightening down security and management of that, which makes troubleshooting and supporting staff quite a bit easier on our end. For credentials, we're looking at security and continuity. So as one person moves from one department to another or transitions to a new team, we make sure that we don't drop anything that they were using. So we don't miss out on invoices or access to tools, stuff like that. And then tools, that ties mostly to the IT department, which is how we manage our systems, how we handle processes to support things, and our overall workflow in troubleshooting and supporting staff and students. We've done a lot of updating our inventory. I don't have a lot to speak of there. Inventory is just inventory. And then total support requests over the last 12 months, we've resolved 5,487 requests, which I think is pretty good for our department. So the stakeholders in this case are our staff. We have 312 licensed teachers in the classrooms, a support staff of 292. That includes like EAs, our custodial staff. Our IT department is in support staff. We have a few contracted staff positions that we support, like their accounts, so they can communicate more easily with our staff. And a little under 4,100 students in total. Our department consists of myself. We have a system server administrator. We have a network manager. We now have a tier 2 help desk technician, which kind of helps route our tier 1s more effectively. And then we have 4 FTE in the tier 1, which is kind of the boots on the ground, the always out in the classrooms in the buildings. And then they kind of escalate things to our system server administrator, our network manager, or myself if they run into something they're not quite equipped to handle yet. And then we provide some additional training for them. I don't know why I got cut off there at the very bottom. We have kind of an HVAC and security specialist that we're hiring that should be on staff on November 27th. And we'll have kind of an accelerated onboarding process to get them into some of the systems we use so that we can better support those at the schools. And that'll be things including HVAC and video surveillance. Click, too far. So our current count of devices, 622 Windows computers, 252 Mac devices, just under 5,100 Chromebooks total, about 1,500 iPads, 214 printers, 626 individual speakers for that paging, which kind of ties into security, and then 681 desk phones. Our infrastructure consists of 116 network switches. That's across all buildings. 284 wireless access points, and the UPSs is our backup batteries. So if we have short 5-minute outage, the battery will keep our equipment powered on so we don't actually lose any services. We've condensed down to 9 physical servers, and we'll be condensing that down further to, I believe, 4 or 5 in the next 3 or 4 months. And that virtual server number will increase a little bit. And 305 cameras currently. We have a couple of potential projects to increase that and replace some aging cameras with some more modern cameras, better views and higher resolution. So all of the tech jargon aside, what are we doing and how can we support teaching and learning, which is coming up to be the integrated plan? So for academic support, our goals are to ensure that we're supporting kind of what we call a baseline of staff and student classroom technologies. And that's that staff have access through a district provided device to the tools and curriculum they need to teach their students, that their students have access to the curriculum so they can be learning and taking practice tests and research. And then as long as we're meeting that kind of baseline, that they have everything they need to be teaching in the classroom, can we work with teaching and learning to identify additional systems or tools that can further enhance classroom teaching and learning opportunities? And then on the CTE side, working with the teachers, with the building staff and admins to make sure that what we're putting in for the CTE pathways supports those pathways. And then ensuring that we're not just looking for today, but we're planning for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So we're kind of future proofing what we're doing. Our overall goals and objectives to collaborate is probably one of the biggest things. We pretty much have a whole new team in the last 12 months. Building the relationships with our staff is the only way that we'll be able to succeed. We'll be able to support them. If they're not comfortable reaching out to us, then we haven't built the relationship that we need yet. So to help facilitate that, we're spending more time in the buildings, having one-on-one conversations and support directly. And we're going to be working on ensuring that we're able to get feedback when staff are requesting support and we do our part. Then we want to make sure follow up, did this successfully resolve this issue? What could we do better? So we're working on getting some tools in place to help us get that feedback. Some other things that are just kind of general process improvements, both within our department and maybe just with the technology in the district in general. There are areas that maybe these aren't working as efficiently as they could. So what can we do to kind of tune it up a little bit? And then one question that has come up, the staff moving from Mac to Windows. I'll touch a little bit more in depth on that on the next slide. To date, we haven't taken anybody's Mac away that didn't want to give up their Mac yet. We have a plan to slowly roll that out and give staff time to adjust and have hands-on and some training opportunities with Windows devices. And then the final objective that I feel is important for our department is having a solid life cycle for our technologies to make sure that we're supporting it for its maximum life cycle and that we're budgeting for replacement when it's time to end of life that device or retire it. So here, unclick, is kind of the tentative plan that we're looking at right now, where we currently have about 250 MacBooks. I didn't update the Windows computers here. It's about 620 total Windows computers. That's the current year. And if we break that 250 down over 3 years, we're looking at replacing about 80 MacBooks, which is going to need to happen sooner or later because a lot of these are starting to reach end of life anyways. So we're going to start working on replacing some of the oldest MacBooks with Windows devices and giving staff time to have both devices in hand so they can start learning how to access their tools and curriculum on a Windows device. And if they run into problems, they'll still have their Mac right there that they can pivot back, use the tool they're familiar with, and then we can work with them to train on how to access things with the Windows device. So the plan is to tentatively do about 80 MacBooks per year and phase them all out by about 2027. And then we're just on a regular life cycle plan for Windows devices. That's it. I hope I was brief enough. Questions, discussion, comments?
This is a great overview. Question more about the fiscal cost in between your on-prem servers versus virtual servers. I know we're reducing that, but if you're going to upgrade your virtual servers, there's a constant cost for that versus on-prem where you have more of a heavier upfront cost and then residual lower costs, So I know you guys have probably done analysis. I'm just wondering, are we truly saving money doing it that way or not if we're going to have to expand even more virtual servers? Because 42 is quite a bit in itself. So I don't know what we started with, I guess, on-prem servers in the first place.
So the virtual servers is kind of like our own in-house cloud,
Okay.
essentially. So we're not putting this like on AWS.
Okay.
We're kind of creating almost our own little cloud service here at the district, where we can take physical servers and turn them. A virtual server is essentially like a program or an application. So we're running the server as a program on another server. And the way that helps reduce costs is that we can buy one physical server with memory and processing power, and we can allocate that to the little application servers, the virtual servers, so that we're more effectively using that on the servers that need it. And when they don't need it, they release it back to the pool so we can allocate that to the next server so that it can do its work. And so instead of buying 15 physical servers to do work 20% of the day, we can condense that down to one single server that has enough hardware to support each of those 15 applications, sort of, as they need resources. So we can better allocate resources that way and not have to buy a ton of hardware. And at the same time, the licensing costs for the applications, for the operating systems, has gone up in recent years. The agreements with Microsoft for server licensing has expanded quite a bit. So by reducing the physical servers, we are reducing the number of licenses that we need for our servers because the virtual servers are included in the physical server license. We don't need additional server licenses for virtual machines.
Thank you.
This is just a curiosity question. Are most of the teacher computers laptops, or do some teachers prefer a desktop?
I would say probably 97% of all of our staff use laptops. The occasional places where we see desktops is primarily around the labs, computer lab spaces, where the teacher likes to have a desktop that complements their student desktops.
Hey, great presentation.
Thanks.
Did an excellent job. Hey, I'm curious about something. All the Chromebooks that we have, you went over the budget. Are we being plagued with damaged Chromebooks that we're having to replace quite often? And if so, what's the cost to the district on that?
I don't have the fiscal numbers for the cost of replacement. We have had issues primarily at the middle school level with damaged devices. The student will leave a pencil in the Chromebook and close it. That destroys the screen, picking off keys. We do key or keyboard replacements as needed. That was probably exacerbated when we went one-to-one for COVID and made sure every student had one. There wasn't a lot of clear guidance to students on repercussions for damaged devices if it was intentional. We kind of addressed that. We have a policy this year that helps to address that. And the middle schools have kind of reined that back. So there's more oversight on the devices as students use them. And we've seen less damage this year than I think we have in the past 3 or 4 years.
All right, thanks.
I've got a few little ones. That bond money for Dundee, that's set aside already?
Yes.
Okay, I assume so. You talked about the amount of resolved claims or tickets. Are there unresolved?
On any given day, we probably have a revolving 70 to 90 tickets. Some of those are more like projects where we do a little bit of work and then we coordinate with somebody and then we'll follow up with them and complete a little bit more work. So it's kind of a work in progress ticket is kind of how I think of them. On any given day, we probably receive between 40 and 60 new tickets that we resolve 30 to 50 of those and then 10 become, work on it the next day. At any given point in time, we have about 90 tickets open. Trickling in and getting resolved as we can.
Generally, everything's able to be done in-house eventually.
Yes, definitely a little more volume towards the start of school. And then things kind of flatten out a little bit towards the end of October and become a little bit more manageable for us.
And the last little question was, what is that life cycle on the Windows compared to the Mac?
It's pretty comparable. We typically see a 5 to 7 year life cycle. And manufacturers are working to push that even further so we can get 8, 9, 10 years potentially. We have some of both in district that are 10, 11, 12 years old at this point.
Does that go for the Chromebooks as well?
Chromebooks are kind of on a more hard 7-year cycle right now. That's as far as Google will support them for software. And without software updates, then we can't run like our testing apps and stuff like that.
I would like to thank you for getting my school board email running again. Because I'm one of the stakeholders. And when I called and was talking to him, he was speaking all these things that I didn't understand he was saying. And so you magically made it work and I appreciate it.
Awesome.
One small follow-up question with the open tickets or what Director Allen was asking. I'm a data guy. What's your average cycle time for open tickets, open to close?
I don't have those on the top of my head. We have an average first response time, and then we have an average time to resolve. I could probably get those for you, but I don't have them off the top of my head tonight.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Will your presentation be posted on the website for people to?
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Okay, that would be helpful. I mean, you've already prepared it. Other people might want to see it who didn't tune in tonight.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Item Heather Bixby, June expenditure revenue reports, October expenditure revenue reports. Thank you.
So in your board packet is again a expenditure and revenue report from last year for the June 30th ending date. And this is just because we've had some adjustments. So I just want to keep you guys aware of those adjustments as they're happening. There should not be any more adjustments until after the audit is complete. So unless if we're presenting, if the auditor is presenting next month, you won't see a June 2023 budget and revenue and expense report unless they have changes specific that they want us to make. So we are done making changes to last year. Everything is being pushed into this year, even if it was something that should have been taken care of in last year. So at some point we have to draw the line and stop making changes to the prior year. So there's nothing in there that really concerns me. When I look at the amount of revenue compared to the amount of expenditures that we had for last year, I feel pretty good about where we were at. I feel good about the numbers and nothing really stood out for me as far as being over budget in one specific item that we weren't able to correct through resolution at the end of last year. And then this year's to date are in here. Please keep in mind that revenues will jump significantly in the general fund in the month of November. So you're not going to see that on this one. But when you look at these next month and you see all the tax payments come in, that will be a significant increase. We are doing similar to what we did last year, where we invested on some short-term investments. We're looking into doing that with some of our tax revenue again. Basically, that just gives us the opportunity to make a little bit of extra interest. We do them on a 3-month and a 6-month maturity, so that in 3 months we'll get some of that money back with some interest. And then in 6 months, right before our June payroll, which is 3 separate paychecks for employees that have the summer off, and we need a little bit of extra revenue, it's kind of setting that aside and allowing us to make some extra interest on that as well. So.
Any questions about June? If not, we'll go to October. Thank you.
Yeah, so the October, I also kind of just touched on both of those. So the October revenue and expenditures, I really don't have any concerns at this point with them. As we start building the budget for next year, those will start projecting out more of our expenditures throughout the through the end of the year, so that we have a better idea where to budget for the next year and what our beginning fund balances will be.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to the policy update, there's one thing I wanted to just go back on our consent agenda. One of the things on the consent agenda was, hires and resignations. And I think it would be remiss if we didn't say the person who was resigning was Larry Hampton. And he has worked with the district for many years in many capacities, and he's still going to be on contract to finish up with the bond. But I just felt important as a board to acknowledge his good work for all the years with the Newburgh School District.
Yeah, he'll still be with us until, I believe, September 30th of 2024. Basically, we're keeping him on to see the bond through. So, yeah.
Okay, so item policy update, we had a thick packet this time, so thank you. Mr. Lindenberger.
So as I've shared with you in a couple of meetings earlier, I was anticipating 20 or 30 policies, so 6. We're really grateful. I had an opportunity to get together for the first time with Director Allen and Director DeHart. This is the second year we've been on policy committee together, and then Director Wolford as well. So I want to read through with you a little bit, since this is really our first time as a board and going through first readings with policy. One thing I wanted to point out, a little bit off script though, was a little surprised today that we saw the resignation of Jim Green, the head of OSBA for many, many, many years. So I'm seeing some nodding of heads that some of you are happen to get a chance to see the email. I don't know how that's going to affect our process here in regards to policy, but we may see some changes in the near future. We may not. We just don't know with the change of leadership what that's going to look like. But Jim has been a dedicated worker and servant to students and staff and boards all these many years. And so I just wanted to point that out. So we get policy updates from OSBA. We typically will get a quarterly update, and the general process outlined in policy and what we've done as a district is that we will go through a policy committee, and OSBA has some recommendations as to some change or to update some policies or even to add some policy. So we've met as a policy committee, and we sat down and we went through each of these policies and took a look at it. So as an example, the first two policies in your packet, it refers to board meetings, which is policy BD, BDA, and then there's also an executive sessions policy or policy BDC. And these are updated policies we had in existence that OSBA was recommending. So as an example for these first couple of policies, there was a House Bill 2805 and HB or House Bill 2806, which added new provisions to public meeting laws and executive sessions. It's expanded the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, or the OGEC, oversight on public meetings and added provisions requiring a board member to receive mandatory public meeting training. So this past weekend, I had a chance, for the most part, to sit in on a training at that time and gave it a little bit more clarity in what that looks like. So for example, board members will be required to have training in public meetings for one-time training for the life of your cycle. So if you're on a 2-year cycle, you're going to need to do a training. If you're on a 4-year cycle, you're going to need to do a training. And so I asked questions as far as when is that going to take place or the dates that are coming up, and they don't have that information at this time. Also understand too that the role of OGEC, sorry, I'll get used to this acronym. This is a new one. They've been the primary oversight, as I read quickly through this, of executive sessions. And so if somebody had a complaint with how a district ran an executive session, it goes to the Ethics Commission. This part of our board meeting didn't go to them. This House bill changes that law. So not only do you have a training once per cycle as an elected official, but then also there's now a process that they've developed. So if somebody has an issue or a concern in regards to how a local school district is running a board meeting, this policy is now coming into play and coming into place. And so I wanted to point that out to you as a highlight. We went through it as a policy committee, but I had a little more in-depth explanation as to what this is going to look like. And this is going to continue to unfold, and I will continue to update you whether it's through a board meeting or giving you the factual information via email. And there was also a couple of expansions within the policy as well, which then allows us to address a couple of new things that weren't covered in the past, and that came from HB 2806. So we can now get into an executive session, for example, to discuss safety matters. Maybe we want to talk about the computer or tech side and what are safety features that we have in place, or maybe we want to talk about physical safety and security. That wasn't allowed before in an exec session. These policies and this update in the law is going to allow us to do that. The next policy update that we have is paid medical family leave, or you'll hear the term PFMLI. We will sometimes say PLO, or Paid Leave Oregon. Education, we love to have our own acronyms and our own language. And so this is a policy that's being updated. We actually updated it last spring in May of 2023, had a legislative session, and they said, let's make another minor adjustment or two. So we had a policy that was pretty up to date, but a sentence here or there within the policy, there was a shift that the policy committee took a look at. The next policy that we have is retirement of staff, or policy GCPC or GDPC. And basically what this is coming out of House Bill 2296. There is a critical shortage of staffing when it comes to licensed employees in the state. And so if you were to retire, it would allow you to not only retire, but and draw on your PERS retirement, but then also receive pay from the district. Prior to that, you could get 50%, or you could work half time and then draw your full retirement. But because there's such a critical shortage with licensed personnel, that the state did trial run here for a few years. It was set to sunset or expire in 2019, or it extends the sunset to now 2034. My apologies for misquoting. So it was only a 4 or 5 year cycle, but now they've kicked it out to 2034. I can tell you basically there aren't as many people getting into the education coming out of the colleges and universities and joining the workforce. And then we also have states to us, both to the north and to the south, that pay better than the state of Oregon does. And so there's a little bit of a recruitment going on here on the West Coast. If you go to the east of us, the state of Oregon pays better than Idaho. So anyway, that is the essential reason as to why this policy and the legislature decided to extend and allow folks to retire and then to continue to work in full time. And the last policy we had was an updated of our policy LBE, or public school charters. And there was a recommendation that we update our policy. If it was in place prior to 2021, our policy was actually 2017. So these are for your perusal, your first reading. I won't go through these tonight as far as reading through each one of those. If you have questions or concerns, as well as with the public, if they have questions or concerns, they can reach out to us between now and the next board meeting. And if we need to reconvene the policy committee, because there are some questions or concerns, we can do that, or you could anticipate at your next board meeting that this would be in the consent agenda if I'm not seeing or hearing any recommendations or changes. Questions, comments?
No questions, no comments? Then we'll move to OSBA board election. OSBA is the Oregon School Board Association, and they service 197 school districts in the state of Oregon. And they have representatives like when Deb and I were at this conference this last weekend. They have representatives and round tables from different regions. And our round table is Yamhill and Polk County. And so someone for a school board member from one of any school in those counties can run and be served then to represent our region on the state Oregon School Boards Association on their state board. And the gentleman who ran our roundtable this at the conference, his name was Craig Albright of Dayton. And he has been serving on the OSBA board of directors already, and his term's up, and so he needs to be re-voted on. And so every local school board can vote on him, or if you want someone else, you can vote on someone else. So that is why that is there. And then they also have the legislative policy candidates, and there are different board members whom I didn't meet these people. There's 3 people who would like to serve on that committee listed here. And so we need to take action and just say we support this person to represent us on the Oregon School Board Association's board of directors and at their legislative policy candidate. So that's the explanation. And so we move to number 9, board action items. And so we would need to have a motion to adopt the resolutions that they have. They also have resolutions to create an Oregon Rural School Boards Members Caucus. And they have a resolution to change a few bylaws. And so that is in our packet. the questionnaire, you also received the questionnaire for Greg Albright, and you received a candidate resume about him. And then you received a questionnaire for the legislative policy committee for Ed Dressel. And then also for, and I think the pictures must be mixed up here. It doesn't look quite right there when I read through this packet. The other one is Abby Wambler. And in our packet. So does anybody have any? And then the resolutions for the governance agreement are also in the packet. So and the bylaws are in the packet, which are draft, which are very extensive. I did read through them, but they were extensive. So first off, I guess we'd start, would someone make a motion or to who you would like for Greg Albright to be on the position 13 for the Board of Directors for OSBA for Yamhill, Polk County?
So I have a point of clarification, Chair. So if I'm looking at this one page that kind of has a timeline. It says submission of votes to OSBA, each member, board, and the appropriate region shall have one vote in the regional elections. Person receiving a majority of votes, whatever. So, but that says November 15th through December 15th. Do we have to vote on this right now? I mean, we just got some of this information in the last couple of days. I don't. Do we have another board meeting before then that we can actually look over these folks and have more discussion about it? I don't.
I guess we could reserve. I mean, I felt like we had the information for a week, but if people don't want to vote on it, we could wait.
I guess I was maybe I'm in the minority of not reviewing it enough about this. That's fine.
I would like to do more research to.
Okay.
These people.
Okay, well, then we will postpone that.
We do have a meeting on December 12th, so we could squeeze in there. Yeah.
And Craig Albright has been very active. This is just some information. And he was at the summer conference, and I had a chance to participate in sort of a roundtable that he was leading. And then he also did one for the conference over the weekend. And I had a chance to meet Abby, who's part of the McMinnville School District. She was part of our roundtable. That's just had an opportunity to meet them, but I don't have any problem getting it in by next month, but they were really clear. They need us to vote on that. So if we do the December meeting, I think we'll meet their timeline.
And that's fine. I guess I just didn't know this was so important that we had to do a vote today about people that are outside of us, and I just wanted to have due diligence. So.
Can you hear me at all? Hey, this is Director Wolfer. If we're gonna postpone it, can I just point of clarification? I know we don't have anything in the packet on Susan Graham, and we also have looks like Ed Dressel twice, once with a picture, once with likely not a picture of him. I tried to look him up on Facebook, and that's definitely not his picture. So is that something that this was given to us this way, or is there a way that we can, if we're going to table this anyway or postpone it, that we get the, excuse me, the correct packet on these if Susan Graham, maybe it didn't get to us by mistake, or maybe she just didn't submit anything, but that's definitely something I would want to know for my vote is if she submitted something or not.
Yeah, that's what they gave us, but we can circle back with them and see if they have something cleaner.
And isn't it on the OSBA website? Do you know? I think it should be, but I haven't looked.
I did not look at the OSBA website. I just looked at the packet. We'll just postpone this then till the December 12th meeting? Okay. And so if we then go through the packet a long ways, go ahead.
Is there any interest in sorry. I wanting to go over the ones that maybe there's a decision to be made, but do we want to talk about Craig Albright?
Yeah, I'm good. I just, I guess I'll add comment now that I could do at the board comment. This is like, yes, this maybe came out a week ago, but if there's important things that we need to read, I guess I would ask going forward, say, we need to focus on agenda item 9, first bullet point, to make sure we do our due diligence and homework before, that. So that's all I'm asking.
No, that's fine. I like your suggestions, Saul. So is there a motion to approve Greg Albright to serve as Board of Directors, position 13 for OSBA?
Yeah, I'll move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors support Craig Albright of Dayton for the OSBA Board of Directors, position 13.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. The positions 13 and the resolutions we'll wait on. If we scroll through our packet, this was what was from our November, our October meeting. We decided because Renee, you weren't here, to make sure all board members, but James has been here before and he's listening in. So the approval was for the board governance agreement for Dundee about how our roles and how we communicate agreement. And is there a motion, is there discussion first about this? This is a standard one from Oregon School Boards Association. It's one that I think previous boards have also used.
We used it last year.
Yeah. So there's not a page here, but it's after the last one that says draft.
Is this a singular board governance agreement?
Yes.
This one, right?
Right.
Okay. I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the board governance agreement as presented.
Second.
I did have a question.
Sure.
On number 5, on the operating agreement, I was just curious, who is the senior leadership team? What
Are you on number 5? Oh, you're on the next one.
I'm on the next
But
one.
yeah, this number 5 on this one is the board will act as
Oh, no,
ambassadors. to the
no,
schools.
no, on the operating
Okay,
agreement.
well, we'll get to that
Oh,
one.
we
yet.
haven't gotten to that.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we have a motion, any discussion about the board governance agreement? Okay, all those in favor, there's been an aye? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. So now your question. The board superintendent and operating agreement, Newburgh Dundee Public Schools, number 5, you said.
Yeah, I was just curious who the senior leadership team is. Who is that?
Dr. Phillips might want to talk to this, but this, to me, the senior leadership team would be the administration, the superintendent, the vice superintendent, the teaching and learning.
So kind of like everybody in the district office kind of a thing?
It's defined under purpose. Second line there, it says, we, the members of the school district senior leadership team, parentheses, board and superintendent, do hereby publicly commit ourselves. So the senior leadership team is the 7 board members and myself.
One of the things that this was also from OSBA, and they had children's interests come first, and they did have that listed as number 15, and we switched that, so that was number 1, that students come first. That was something we feel like is important, and our role as board members and senior leadership team, that we're here for student and student learning. Are there any other comments about this? If not, is there a motion for approval?
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the board and superintendent operating agreement as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Legal Services Dundee Property, Dr. Phillips.
All right, in your packet, you have an email from our, one of our attorneys at Willamette ESD, Christine Nesbitt. Her recommendation is for the board to approve us to use Dunn Carney legal offices, specifically gentleman by the name of Christopher Walters, to help us with the selling of Dundee Elementary. If you read in the email there from her, she talks about to assist with the preparation to make recommendations to the board on the sale of the Dundee property. For example, this attorney would take steps such as reviewing the title report, addressing any zoning issues, and potentially assisting with the purchase sale agreement. Chris has a lot of depth in real estate law, and in particular with assisting school districts on a range of real estate and construction matters, including sales of excess properties. So he comes highly recommended from her. At OSBA this past weekend, his firm was there and he was there, and we were able to chat briefly. I definitely support Christine Nesbitt's recommendation. We're selling a school, and a piece of land is quite different than surplusing 10 old computers and a couple old desks. And so, yeah, we need to do it right. So legal advice is key.
If I may ask, just to be 100% clear, we are talking about the current Dundee school that once the new school is done, kids will transfer to the new school, and this is the old or existing property now.
Correct.
Okay.
So what the my kind of plan is I was hoping to get it, quote, on the market in December. And so whoever's going to buy it, hopefully they can buy it, January, February, and then they know that we have kids in there until the middle of June, and they can't take ownership until after that, but that gives them time to plan, and gives us time to plan as well.
Is this, just out of curiosity, is this like our only option here? Was it a bidding process at all for other people who might be?
No, it was
doing these services?
Vetting. She did all the vetting.
Okay.
By you reading this email, you're just about know as much as I do. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve Dunn Carney LLP as legal representation related to real estate transactions as presented. I assume that that's transactions instead of transations.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Turning the page on the agenda, Budget Committee, Zone 4. In your packet, it's not in this packet. It was the one that you got online because we didn't feel it was appropriate to have people's personal information in their application, or their address, their phone number, their email, in a public packet without, and so there are two people who have applied to be the Budget Committee members for Zone 4. One is Claire Hertz and the other is Hillary Crew. Are there discussions about the applications, please?
This is James. I think, all right, am I on? Yeah. I just wanted to point out, I like that, looks like Claire Hertz has a lot of experience specifically with school districts. They both have a lot of experience, but I think that to me weighs a lot heavier, that there's a lot of school district experience there, including with Newburgh School District at one point.
Thank you, James. I will say that Claire is the one who said that she was going to apply and contact me because I'm in zone 4, and we met and we discussed, and I was a little overwhelmed by her expertise and experience that weekend when we discussed. She was on her way to the National School Board Directors Convention in Washington, D.C. And so she's been a consultant for other school districts. She had been retired, she said, and then she had been working for Portland Public Schools, and they've had some retirement, so she was working 20 hours a week on contract right now for them, and then has her consulting firm. So she is certainly an expert. I don't think we could find anybody with any more expertise to serve on the budget committee. I appreciate the other applicant and certainly would have, has good experience, but as our Director Wolfer says, not particularly in school board budgeting.
Yeah, I concur. I think the experience with the school districts is the cause and the lead there. I do know the other applicant personally. She is a great advocate for our schools and children in the school district. And she does, she's worked for Oregon state government for many, many years. So she has some good experience too, but I think the knowledge that comes with just inherently working with the school district for so many years will be very beneficial.
Is there a motion to select an applicant?
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve Claire Hertz as Budget Committee member for Zone 4 as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Wolfer. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of Claire Hertz? Aye. Okay, motion carries. That's good. We have a full budget committee now. Budget calendar, Heather.
So in your board packet, I put a proposed budget calendar for the 24-25 budget that we will be preparing. As I learned last year, people like to have multiple options to have discussion about the board. So I actually put on the calendar up to 3 meetings. And of course, there is some time available if we need additional meetings in that time frame. But I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to voice their concerns about the budget, make sure that I was able to have enough time to answer all your questions and be able to report back to you. So if we only need 2 meetings, great. We don't need to have the 3rd one, but I went ahead and put it on the calendar just so that people could kind of set that day aside in case we needed it for the budget.
I really appreciate you putting this together, but my one concern is, if I'm correct, May 27th is Memorial Day, Monday?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
And I don't think that would probably be the
Yeah, I
best
won't
time
be
for
here for
meeting.
I did not. Might be a typo. The 28th on a Tuesday?
Well, can I ask a question on, I mean, that's fine that we have all the opportunities, but why is it so heavy? I mean, it looks like you're starting to have work sessions in February. Why are we having so many heavy meetings towards the ends of this process?
So the work session is a time for me to kind of get information to you guys and the budget committee as a whole about how to read the budget, how to view the numbers, how the budget is going to be prepared. That budget work session does not actually
have anything to do with what will be proposed in the budget. It is a formality. It's kind of a training just to get you guys some experience. Sometimes boards and budget committees want to, be able to ask, what does this fund do? What does that fund do? Answer those kind of questions and get the housekeeping things out of the way. But the reason that it's so heavy in May is because we want to give our best guess of what we think our expenses are going to be. This year is a negotiation with the licensed. So the farther back we can push the budget, the better chance we may have at having a good number for what we anticipate their wages, because they will be negotiating their salary schedules for next year. And so if we do those early on, then the budget, by the time we approve it or by the end of the year, may have completely different needs. So we want to educate and help you guys get some of your basic questions answered early on. And then as we prepare the budget document and get that proposed one, get it to you in enough time before the first meeting that you can start reviewing it and ask any questions that you might have. That, if it's a process or something that you want to ask, you can always email me and I can, help you answer those questions before we sit down in that first budget meeting to go over the actual proposed budget document. So it's not unusual for school districts. Newburgh has never had an actual, well, I won't say never, but in the history that I found, we didn't have any budget committee meetings that started before like the very end of April into May. And usually the idea is that you'll have an adopted budget no later than the end of June. So you want your budget adopted before you go in. So our goal is to try and hit the timeline so that we don't have to have an extra board meeting for that final adoption in June.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have we identified who's on the budget committee?
I think, yes, we have identified
Okay, I
the,
just don't remember who. I don't think it's me.
It's all.
the whole board's on the budget committee. And then there's 7, then there's one.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so it's yeah. I was thinking that there was, yeah, it's all of us.
And one citizen from each zone.
Yes, okay.
Who's appointed by the board, according to board policy. So do you want to switch the date to May 28th?
Yes.
On that?
I can make that correction. If you guys want to approve it with the 28th, then I can make that adjustment, get it to Tabitha, and we can post it on the website.
All right, I'll move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the budget calendar for 2024-2025 as amended.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the, aye? Okay. Okay, Heather, you have nomination for WC Budget Committee?
Which one are we doing? Okay, so I received some emails from Willamette ESD regarding a vacancy that they have on their budget committee. And typically that position is filled with districts who are supported by the local service plan of the WESD, will appoint a board member to that budget committee. So ideally, what we like to do is we like to have a board member who is willing to volunteer their time to go to the Willamette ESD and sit through their budget committee hearings and their budget process. This kind of gives Newburgh Dundee schools a voice when it comes to special education and the services that are available through the WESD. And it just kind of ensures that we're making ourselves, or we're putting ourselves out there to let them know that we care how they're spending the money and making sure that they're being fiscally responsible as well. So if there's not a board member who would like to be appointed to that, then the board can appoint citizens from their community in their school district to participate in this. We did have two people in our community reach out to WESD. One was Scott Murphy. He works for McMinnville School District, but he lives in the Newburgh School District. And then Lindsay Hayden, who works and she lives in Newburgh and she works for the Newburgh School District. So ideally, we'd like to have a board member who would like to go and make sure that our needs are met in their budget process and but if nobody wants to, then we would ask that you would nominate one of the citizens who's expressed some interest and let them go.
Do you have any idea what the time commitment or in evening meetings or for this is?
I have no idea what their process is yet. I don't even know that they have their budget calendar approved.
Do you know where it is?
It's in Salem. I would imagine they would have a remote option. But yeah, it's in Salem on Pringle Drive, if that helps. I think their process is shorter than ours. Usually a school district's budget takes longer to get through. But it's not, it's a commitment for sure.
Do we have any eager volunteers?
In a different year, maybe.
If we don't have volunteers, we have two people who live in the Newburgh Dundee Public School District and one who works here who have volunteered. Answer is yes. Thank you.
I'll make a quick comment. So one, I'll kind of abstain from the other two options, but just if people don't know, Scott Murphy was a principal in the Newburgh School District as well for many years. He did recently move to McMinnville, but his kids are still here. And so he's still active he's the announcer for the football games. I'm not trying to pitch anything against the other person, but I just want to make sure it's well-rounded knowledge of his involvement with Newburgh as well. So.
Is there a motion to appoint one of our volunteers?
Oh, sorry.
Well, then I am going to, let's see. Move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors designate Lindsay Hayden as a candidate for the WESD Budget Committee.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion?
What if we want to nominate the other guy?
Well, we would first have a vote this down and then nominate the other person.
Okay. I like the idea of having somebody that is really familiar with Newburgh and then work as a principal. I didn't know that because I didn't know anything about either of them. So.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, and so we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3.
James, are you yay or nay for Lindsay?
I'll go nay on this.
Okay. So that means the motion does not carry. So would you like to nominate someone as another nomination?
So I'd like to nominate Scott Murphy for the WESD Budget Committee candidate.
Is there a second for this?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. So we have 6, I abstain. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we have 6 people who yay and 1 abstaining. Okay, Heather. Proposed adult meal increase. Thank you.
So every year, we're required to report how much revenue we have in excess of expenditures in our food service account. And this is what helps determine whether or not we are a nonprofit food service program. And we have to maintain that nonprofit food service program in order to be eligible for the federal reimbursements and the state reimbursements. So part of that process is looking at our revenues and our expenses and seeing, are we self-supporting of what we're providing in our schools? And one of the things that came out in the report that was done for last year was we're not charging enough for our adult meal prices. So prior to, it's been $3 for breakfast, $4 for lunch. That is not enough right now to cover the cost of the food that goes into an adult meal for breakfast or for lunch. In order to maintain compliance, we need to increase the rate that we're charging for adult meals. So I took the amount of money that we were short for making our break even and kind of divided it by the number of adult meals that we served last year. And we needed to increase breakfast and lunch by about 50 cents in order to break even. It was like $4.47, but I don't know that we really want to get into pennies when we're taking lunch money. So I rounded them up to the even 50 cents for breakfast and for lunch. And so I just ask that we approve that so that we can maintain our nonprofit food service and our break even with adult meals.
When will it go into effect?
It will need to go into effect immediately. So we could say the 1st of December, but it absolutely has to go into effect this school year.
Maybe after Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
Finish the week and then.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to clarify? It's been many years, I guess, since I've sat with my children and had lunch. Is there a difference in the meal portions, I guess, between kids and adult lunch or
So
meals?
the kids' lunches are subsidized by commodity food. And while you're taking advantage of that, if you come and have a meal with your student, you're still required to pay for your portion of that.
Sure.
So
Makes
that's
sense.
where the difference in the price comes in.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve this?
I move that the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the adult meal price increase as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Item 10. Student representatives and students' comments. So finally, we get to hear from you. You sat through the whole meeting. So would you like to make a comment? Let's see.
Yeah, so I just want to bring to light a little thing we're doing at the high school tomorrow.
Excuse me, just for, I didn't introduce yourself. Can you introduce you so everybody knows
I'm
it?
Fred Sutherland. I'm one of the school board
Okay,
representatives.
thank you.
And I would like to just highlight a little thing we're doing at the high school tomorrow. We are having the CT department's Makers Market tomorrow at 5 o'clock. It's a fundraiser and you can come there and buy. It's targeted as something where you can buy holiday gifts, but we're doing things like floral design and holiday decor from all of our different CTE departments. So just wanted to highlight that for everyone. Stop on by.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Fred? No? Okay, Esther?
I don't know. I'll just say it's cool to learn about school board meetings. I'm learning in AP Gov right now. I feel like I'm in like a mini Congress session or something. Anyways, I don't know. I guess in ASB right now, we're currently doing Powder Puff, which is girls learning how to play football, which I'm a part of, which is pretty fun. But that's kind of the extracurriculars that we're planning right now is student leadership. Yeah, and that's it.
When is the Powder Puff match?
The match is this Friday, I believe at 7 o'clock. Yeah.
I'd like to say hi because I wasn't here at the last board meeting, but I remember last year with our student reps, we had them like pick something that they like the anti-bullying, and they kind of did took that under their wing. And so I just, my question to you is if you three would have something that you would want to highlight or to work on, I guess, that you could bring to the board, you know, then I don't know. So any thoughts on that?
Trisha, I think would be able to say good stuff on this, but a big thing was just college readiness we just finished up Tiger Takeoff, that some of our seniors participated in, but I think that was a big thing that we all kind of agreed on, of just how high school students and even maybe before that can just be prepared for what's after high school.
Thank you. We're very glad you're here. And I know that Tricia was here earlier, but had to leave. So now we'll go to board and superintendent comments. I think I'm going to start because I had a good experience. First off was a huge congratulations to the high school drama department. Went to see Hello Dolly, and they did a great job. So all the students who participated, the cast members, the orchestra, the stage workers, it was just an excellent show. So it was really fun to be there and watch that. And you were talking about the college takeoff. I know that Dr. Phillips and Director Bridges and I were there to mock interviews in the library for students on college applications and jobs. And that was a fun thing to just be involved in. And then, as we mentioned, Director Bridges and I and Dr. Phillips and Mr. Lindenberger, and James was there on Saturday. Director Wolfer had the privilege of attending the OSBA convention. It was in Portland. It was November 9th, 10th, and 11th. And Thursday all day was the pre-conference and was on training on balanced board governance. So it was like a sieve, just getting information in and how to try to do the best we can. And I personally, we divided up and all attended. They had breakout sessions and there were so many choices, but I was able to attend ones on we're in the school district that guarantees reading, and talked about how professional development, particularly for reading, one on board policies, one on board roles and responsibilities of state mandated curricular changes, which was very interesting. And then another one was board superintendent roles and responsibilities. And the last one was on parental rights to student records and educational materials, which was an interesting topic to discuss. And so I had many takeaways from this conference, and one of them was that in all of these sessions about board relationships is that it's okay for us to disagree and be polite in it. And that's fine, that healthy dissension is normal. But the goal is always put the students first, whatever we're doing. And one of the best parts of the conference for me was meeting at lunch and meetings with other board members from other districts, just to find out what they're doing, what are their successes, what are their frustrations. And so that was a valuable experience. And I thank the school district for paying for my registration to go. And it was 3 days of intense learning for me. And one of the takeaways, and this is from the summer conference, and this one is, I mentioned it before, that school boards that spend 70% of our time working on issues related to student learning have better results for their students. And so there was a man who wrote a book that I hope that many of us will read. They actually did studies of school boards and clicker how much time they talked about student learning. And so as we set agendas and stuff, I really want to keep that in mind because we are here for students. I know we have to do policy and we have to do budget, and that does greatly affect student learning. But like tonight, it was wonderful to hear about the what's going on in the curriculum, and that's direct student learning. So anyway, that's my comments for the night. Thank you. Saul, we'll start in the middle.
Thank you. Yeah, so I got a chance to go to Joanne Austin for their movie night. I was gonna go to Hello Dolly that night, but we watched Wall-E, which was great. It was really awesome to see so many families show up for that kind of event. It was great to see all the kids get to interact with their friends and teachers in a different little atmosphere there. And a big shout out to the parent group there that put that all together, because it was a really great activity for them. It's been interesting with the time change and getting used to this early morning in the dark, as I'm sure you guys kind of know. But yeah, I'm impressed that everything just keeps on going smoothly, buses and drop offs when that happens. So I feel like this school year has been starting off really great, and thank you to everybody involved getting that all going, and hoping for a nice Thanksgiving break for everyone to get well rested for the next quarter.
Well, I've done a lot of fun things, Hello Dolly, and the conference was great. But I want to address that Sunday morning, the first email that I saw was addressed to the school board. And it was from a community member / parent who just rightfully sort of addressed their concern about a comment that I had made at the October 10th board meeting, which that individual had said that it was disrespectful. And I read the email. It was very well written, and I was like, absolutely. I was in the heat of the moment, and at a time when I should have been more measured in my response, I made a statement, and it was disrespectful. And I reached out to that individual right away and apologized and said that I would make a statement, but that I also would reach out to everybody who either provided a written comment or came and spoke. And then my computer wouldn't work. And then I felt kind of bad about it. So I was able to get all the emails sent today. But really, I want to, first of all, express and acknowledge that individual for reaching out to the board to point it out. The very first board meeting that we had, I was really captivated by the statement that the OSBA trainer came, and in fact, I wanted it written up on the wall, that we model the way for our children. And clearly, I did model the way. It was just a poor model. It was a poor way to express frustration. And so I have expressed my apology to those who came to give their statement, because I don't want people to feel that we don't want to hear from the community. I want to express apology to all my board members, because while I speak for myself, I recognize how it can reflect negatively on the board as a whole and the work that we do. And to our leadership, because you hear it from the community and you work diligently day in and day out to make our school community vibrant and a great place for kids to be. But really, ultimately, to the kids, because I wasn't modeling what behavior I expect of myself, but I expect of the community. We've gone through a lot of divisiveness, and my frustration and my inability to sort of measure what I wanted to say, I just didn't do a very good job of it. And I said to this person that I can do better, and that I think the community deserves better, and that I apologize to everybody. So that's my statement.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, I don't have too much to say. I will say, Fred, I look forward to the MakerBot, all the different talented creations you guys have for sale tomorrow. I'll be there for part of that. I want to do a shout out to Tim Wright and the people who put on the Veterans Day thing on, I think it was Thursday morning. I was able to attend that. I attended it in the past. I don't know if I was retired at that point or not, but my kids were still going there. But it was really neat to see. We had the largest turnout, Tim said, that they've ever had there of veterans. And one of I was all pleasantly surprised. The kids performed 3 songs for us, very patriotic songs. Did a great job, led by none other than Mrs. Gansky. Absolutely amazing that she's still there, using her talents for these kids. So it was neat to see her again. Anyhow, I think that's it.
Have a few short things. Joy program, it was awesome to see the kids in here today. I saw their very first concert 7 years ago. So it's just amazing to see the growth, how many more students they serve and how much they get more kids involved in music. Definitely has been, all my kids were part of music at one point or the other. One went to college on music. So music's very important. And I love to see those type of programs continue. SROs, Moreland and Stearns, they're great assets. I like the fact that we approved a second one. We were able to get that all worked out. I've got to know both of them a lot this fall as I was ticket taker at the football game. So razzing with them, once in a while here and there, talking. I guess Moreland has a new nickname for me, so we'll see how far that goes. So student reps, welcome. This is your first official one where we can say, I know we kind of said it before. Thank you. If you need any off the wall questions you need answered, feel free to reach out. I can help do whatever. I'm sure everybody will do that, but just offering my services if you need anything. And tech department, kudos. As my wife is, part of Joanne Austin, they're getting stuff ready for 5th grade. They have Makerspace, they have Lego Robotics, and there was good service, quick turnaround, getting software programmed on their computers so the kids can get involved and get going. So kudos to Scott and the team to a quick turnaround on that and good service. So appreciate that. And that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Okay, I'll try to keep it just short. And I noticed that some of the people that made comments are still in the audience, and I just wanted to acknowledge them and say that I hear you. And, I really want us as a board to look at like what we can do to make all kids feel safe and welcome. And I don't know if that's something that we can discuss at a next meeting or whatever of what that might look like. And then I noticed that, when he was given his presentation for the technology, the tech department, that they make sure that a lot of the computers have age appropriate stuff on it. I would like to see that also have age appropriate books in our libraries. And maybe we could look at maybe having some kind of a policy or something. I'm not saying that we're banning books because that would not go over very well. And that, I've seen that happen in other districts, but maybe something of looking at these books and protecting the innocence of the children, and maybe having it where they have to be checked out, getting the parents' permission or whatever to check out certain books. So they're kind of not in the forefront, and where anybody could pick those up and read them and stuff. So that's just my suggestion on that, because that's really heavy on my heart and everything, that we need to really protect these kids. So.
Dr. Phillips?
Give James a shot.
Yeah, sure. James?
I'll keep it brief. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I didn't want to share my dreams with you all, so I really appreciated Officers Moreland and Stearns, their presentation. Obviously, I'm a little biased based on what I do for a living, but I'm really happy that we have two, and I've had the opportunity to meet both Moreland and Stearns in my professional capacity before, and they're both top notch. And so it's just really nice to see, you know, a second person come alongside. It was great to hear about the new DARE program. That's something new to me, so that was really cool to hear about as a graduate of the first DARE program. So just wanted to point out that was a great presentation. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but really happy. Thank you, Dr. Phillips, for setting that up. And I think that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Okay, as usual, I try to focus my comments on kids. And so some of these I'll go over real quick because you've already hit them, but the Joy program, that was great. We plan on doing more things like that to get kids to come in and liven our board meetings up a little bit. SROs, yeah, I'm really excited about the fact that we were able to partner with the city and bring in 2 SROs rather than 1. You can tell they're going to be a lot more proactive rather than reactive, and that's where it's at. Fred, I had Maker's Market on my sheet. Also, if you come to that and it ends around 6:30, if you can hang out a little longer at the high school auditorium, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. is the Mountain View and Newburgh High School Jazz Band. So you can make a night of it. NEA, our local teachers union, did a survey and they surveyed their staff. Got pretty good turnout, approximately 60%. And the staff came out with some improvements that they would like to see from their buildings, but more focused on the district office. So we've got some work to do, and I look forward to doing that and working with Drew and his team. Okay, boys water polo took 5th in state. Pretty neat. Girls water polo took 5th in state. That's pretty neat. Our high school football team, we're in the Columbia Cup bracket, and they won their first playoff game in the bracket of 16. And then when they went to the Elite Eight, they lost. So, but they made it into the tournament, which is great. Girls cross country took 2nd in districts and qualified as a team for the state championship, state tournament. And Caden Smith qualified on the boys' side for the state cross country meet. So just him, not the team. I was also able to go to Hello Dolly, and I thought it was great. The talent is, I'm a little envious because I wouldn't do that. And to sing in public and all that, they're pretty amazing. And then lastly, Cambria Doman, Cameron Neese, and Jonah Lewis, they qualified for the Western International Band Clinic in Seattle. And that's quite an accomplishment of those 3. So we've got a lot of good kids. Got a lot of good youth, a lot of good teachers, a lot of good just people in general that are making Newburgh great. So thanks, everybody. I guess I don't know about cheer. What? Sorry, cheer. I don't know if they had to win. They go to nationals like every year. So so yeah, it's almost like Newburgh High and wrestling going to state. It's going to happen. I hate to take it for granted like that, but when they win nationals, I'll report it.
Okay, thank you. Future agenda items are early literacy grant, which the board will need to approve. That's a lot of money. And the learning department will oversee that. Updates, executive session, we have for legal updates. And then we have an audit update from Heather probably. And then principal presentations will be in January. And our next board meeting is regular and executive session on December 12th, and the meeting is adjourned.